My next guest has got a huge fight coming up here against Johnny Walker in Brazil, UFC 283, January 21st. It's right around the corner. It's Paul Craig, the Bear Jew, here on the program. Paul, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. It's been a while since I've been out, and I had to miss my Christmas, had to miss my New Year. When I say I had to miss it, it's part of my job, so I didn't have to miss it. I had to do it because it's my job. But I'm excited to be back out. After my previous fight in London, I took a lot of criticism about my stand-up and my performance. So, when MD does that, you want to get right back in, and it's just taken me nearly like 6 months to get back out there. But a lot of things have changed in my camp. So I've started working with a new team. So I'm no longer part of the hit squad. I'm part of a higher level. And I believe they've taken my striking to that next level. Not only that, working with Paradigm Sports. So a new management team, sorting out new contracts. So starting 2023 in a positive light is the way I want to start my year.
A lot to unpack there, and I love it. I love these loaded answers. That's great. First and foremost, you mentioned Paradigm. Tell me how that all came together with you linking up with them.
Yeah, the story goes back to one of the first times I partied with Audie and Tim Simpson. I ended up in quite a bad nick, and what happened was they had put me in a limousine. I was sick all over myself. The limousine driver threw me out into the middle of the street in Arizona, and then the UFC carted me to bed. This was after my fight with Jamahal Hill, and then just this kind of romance started between myself and Paradigm. Anytime they happened to be at all the shows I was attending, and just this sort of friendship came, and then they'd offered a space. Listen, would you be interested in working with us? We see you've got big potential, and we'd love to work with you. So from that, signed a contract, and the first thing the guys did for Paradigm was go straight to the UFC and get the last fight of my contract scrapped, and then they started a new contract, 6 fights, a lot
Awesome.
more money. So as I said, it's positive. 35 years old, not sure how long I've got left in the clock. Physically, I feel great, but you don't really want to be doing this the rest of your life. So it's called the stick up year for me. The old gun, raise the hands, get as much money as I possibly can, and let's see where this sport can take me.
How was the negotiation? Just because Johnny Walker is also part of Paradigm, so I imagine it was a fairly easy, fight agreement.
Yeah, so that was one of the fights. So they had, I had seen Johnny Walker. He'd beat Cutelaba in his fight with a submission, and then there was the talk of Brazil at the start of the year. Now the UFC didn't want to have me in that card. The UFC wanted to keep me for the huge card they've got for usually the London card. That's where they're looking. They're like, listen, Paul, you're a main stable part of the UK roster. We enjoy having you as part of that. It's one of your home crowds, so we want you to be there. I kind of dug my heels in and was like, this is a great opportunity. It's a great fight, and I don't want somebody else taking the fight before I get the opportunity. The way the light heavyweight division's sitting at the moment, it's a bit all up in there. We had was Ankalaev fought against Jan Blachowicz recently for the title, and then Dana White just comes out and says there's Jamahal Hill get the title shot against Glover. So the way the light heavyweight's sitting, I need to get a victory in my next fight, so I need to get back out and I need to get in that winning column again. For when that opportunity comes around and they go, you know what, Jamahal Hill's just beat Glover, and the only person to beat Jamahal Hill was Paul Craig. Let's see if we can set that fight up. That's ideally a great situation. It'd make it even better if it happens to be in March, in London. Bring Jamahal Hill over to the UK and that's a dream situation, but you
Yeah.
never know with this sport. It's so topsy-turvy.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about that fight in a sec, because obviously that kind of came together at the last minute, the Glover and Hill fight. You referenced there that we haven't seen you in a bit. The Ozdemir fight was in July. Here you are talking about a fight in January. What has been keeping you on the sidelines for people who might not be aware?
It was pretty much just I had stuff happening in my personal life with regards to my team.
Oh, okay.
That was a huge thing. That was a huge thing moving into the London card a way back at this during the summer with regards to I had no team. I was kind of like a nomad at the time. I was kind of doing my camp in a few different places, still working with my regular sparring partners like Phil De Vries, like Tom Aspinall. But there was something missing. There was a captain at the top of the helm. There was a captain for my ship. So my ship was kind of steering. It wasn't really getting to where it needed to be. I had a lot of people rally around me, in an ideal situation, I probably should have just taken the moment and been like, listen, with everything that's going on in my life at the moment, the fight's not a great fight for me to take. Not the fight wasn't a great, it's just not a great time to be fighting at the moment, and I need to kind of sort my stuff out. So within the last few months, sorted a new team, kind of getting to grips with their way of training, their philosophies, all that kind of stuff. Because it's like a breakup with a girlfriend that you've been with for 11 years. So I had to break up that relationship and then be selfish sometimes and move to this gym and improve areas where I believe that I've got weaknesses in them. So that's what we've done. Working with James Doolan as a coach is you always believe your coach you've got is one of the best that you've in the division, but it's not until you go elsewhere where you realise there's better out there. And no offence to my previous team or my previous coach, but just his ethos, his philosophy, the morale in the gym is so much different. So what I believe is you're going to see a brand new version of Paul Craig. That's my hope. That's what I'm hopeful for, and that's what my team's hopeful for. And then from that, people are going to be like, Paul Craig, light heavyweight title contender.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, and good on you. I mean, do you think that comes with experience? I mean, maybe the old Paul Craig, if he was younger, might have taken an opportunity on short notice, but now that you're mature and you're kind of looking at your career now, do you feel like, maybe that was a mature decision on your part? Because I'm sure that was tough for you.
Yep, it was, because we're fighters, and that's what we get into a sport for. And if you ask a fighter to fight next month, they'll do it. They love the whole thing that goes a long way, the training, getting to the end, getting the fight, getting the victory. But sometimes you need to have somebody to be like, no. Sometimes you need to have these conversations with partners, with coaches, with your management, and sort your house first before you go out and do other things. And my belief is right now my house is in order. And what you're going to get is you're going to get a bad version of Paul, like a bad mofo coming right at him.
You mentioned there that, you've got two really big wins in the division. You've got Magomed Ankalaev, Jamahal Hill, both submission wins, both their first losses in their career. If you look at Johnny Walker, he's only lost one time by submission. I think his last submission loss, my math's correct here, October 2015. Does that excite you knowing that, because again, not a lot of people are submitting Johnny Walker, but that's your bread and butter. Does that get you excited in a matchup like this?
Yeah, my submission speaks for itself. I've got like some of the most submissions in light heavyweight. I think I've got up there with the most triangles in the division as well. So I've got all these sort of submission records. But this only happens if you put them into practice. And I believe in this fight, I can end it anywhere. I believe in my stand-up. I've got this newfound love for stand-up and this newfound experience that I never had before. And the way that I've been taught recently has opened up a new door in my striking. And what I believe is going to happen is this fight's going to end via strikes. I know it sounds like Paul Craig, the submission expert, is going to be knocking Johnny Walker out, but I just believe in myself, and I believe in my stand-up, and I believe my right hand has got power. And all I needed was somebody to connect the dots and make it so that I could fling it with purpose, with power, and with the point of killing someone.
You mentioned switching up camp. You mentioned the coaches. What about training partners? Who have been some of the main guys helping you get ready for this fight?
The guys that are being part of the gym was guys like Danny Henry, so previous lightweight, welterweight. In the UFC, we've got Stevie Ray, who's just coming off his camp. So working with these guys, maybe not sparring with them because of the size difference, but having them in the gym and leaning on them and using their experience. I've been working with a young amateur who's up and coming. His name's Sean Clancy Jr. The guy is the next level of MMA athletes. Don't just do jiu-jitsu or don't just do boxing. They do MMA. And I've noticed that throughout the gym. This kid has got all the skills to make it to the UFC and make a massive splash in the pond, in that pool. But they've been my main guys. It's been quite a lot of focusing on areas where I need to improve because we know how good my jiu-jitsu is. So if you just constantly keep improving the areas that you enjoy doing, you're not going to get any better. What you need to do is you need to point out the areas where you need to improve in. These are areas where I'm weak. This is how I'm going to get the most percentage in my next fight. So that's what we spent with the new coach. That's what myself, James, and the guys at higher level have been doing, is focusing on these areas where we can get the gold, the gravy, if you will, the next level of Paul Craig, like 2.0. I'm probably up at 5.0 at the moment because I keep reinventing myself every single time I go away to a new camp.
And obviously, this fight's in Brazil. When are you heading down there? Do you have your itinerary figured out? And how long is the distance here? I'm Canadian, and my geography was never good in high school, so I just want to get a little update here. How long is it going to take you to get there?
So it's a few hours. I think it's an 8 hour flight, but it's only a 3 hour time difference. The way how close it is to this side of the towards Europe. With regards to elevation, there's no elevation. Heat acclimatisation is going to be one of the hardest being Scottish, but we've got a process what we've been implementing at the moment to try and build up our tolerance to high levels of heat. Fought in Brazil before. We took the Shogun Hua fight in 10 days' notice, and it was very successful for us. We had the crowd hating us as we were stepping into that octagon, and as we were leaving, the crowd was loving us. I see that happening again. Brazilian fans are passionate about the sport. You know, they'll get behind Johnny Walker, but what they want is they want a fight. And I don't think it matters what nationality you are in the country. I think see if you put on a performance for them, then they'll get behind you. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to putting on a performance, stopping Johnny Walker as soon as I possibly can, via strikes or via submission, and having that crowd, that Brazilian crowd, in my pocket.
Who's going to be making the trip down there with you as far as your corner?
So my corner's going to be, as I said, the young guy Sean Clancy. You know, I've been working a lot with him. It's one of these things where you have to pass it forward. I believe that this kid's got the potential, and I want him to be in amongst these high level shows. I want him to see what the whole process is like. So I'm saying Sean Clancy. My previous cornerman that's been in all of my UFC fights is Chris Bungard, who's had my back for day one when I joined the Hit Squad 11 years ago. And then it's going to be Danny Gray, who's my cornerman for this one. A very high level jiu-jitsu practitioner, very experienced in the world of cornering. So I've got a good team round about me. I've still got that wee old familiar face in there with my teammate Chris Bungard, but it's a good, powerful team, and I've got a bit of belief in them.
You mentioned it there, knockout. A little bit surprising, but I like the honesty. How do you see? When do you see a knockout in this fight? How do you see it going down?
One of these things, you'll take it as soon as you possibly can. But I think once Walker feels actually how strong I am, I think you might find that he's going to actually try and shoot. I think when he feels the power in my hands and in my legs, then he's going to be blown away with actual, as most people are. Like I've seen, like I went 3 rounds with Ankalaev, and that was the thing that was, he switched up his stance, was the power in my kicks and the power in my hands. And I don't think Johnny Walker's ready for what I've got. And as I said, it's about, I always had the power in there, and I always had the skill in my kicks and my punches. I just never had the confidence. And I think that's what's changed over the last 6 months, confidence in my abilities.
Top of your division is that title fight between Glover Teixeira and Jamahal Hill taking place on your card as well.
Yep.
How do you see that fight going? I was curious, just your pick on that one. Obviously fought Jamahal, but Glover is a really tough guy to take out, as we've seen over his career.
I know he's very, very tough, but I believe he's coming to the end of his career, and I know he's still got that strength and that jiu-jitsu that's probably got Jamahal Hill that little bit worried about it. But what Jamahal Hill's got is that death touch. He just touches people and they fall asleep. So I believe that's how it's going to be. Johnny Walker in the head here at the moment.
Yeah, no, here.
Glover's obviously taking some huge shots. And he's rode the storm with him. But I believe Hill's just got this death touch that you've seen in The Simpsons, where he just zaps him and they just fall asleep. And I think that's how the fight's going to be. I think a smart Glover's going to try and come out and take him down, because I've already set the blueprint on how to beat him. That's how it should be done. But I think Jamahal Hill working with Anthony Smith is going to be having good sprawls. He's going to be able to stop the takedowns getting in there, and he's going to land these shots. So I believe it's going to be ending probably the first round, and it's going to be via strikes. That's how I think this fight's going to go. I know it's probably not the most popular opinion. Glover's one of these guys that are like a stable part of the UFC roster, light heavyweight for the last umpteen years, 10, 11, 12 years. But I just believe the young buck is hungrier than the old bull.
No, I like the assessment there. I actually interviewed Jamahal before this fight with Glover, and I brought you up, obviously, because you're the only man to defeat him, but also your ground game, and he's fighting a really great ground specialist. Jamahal mentioned that he thinks you have the best ground game at 205. It seems like there's a lot of respect there. Is that the same feeling on your end?
Yeah, I've got nothing but respect for him. After someone's punched you in the face,
Mhm.
It doesn't matter if it's win, lose, or draw, whatever the outcome is. You have a bit of respect for them, because you've shared a moment. You've gone through a full fight camp, visualising their face for anything up to 12 to 16 weeks of just the same thing, focusing on that one person, focusing on all their movements. So you go through this whole relationship with them even before you meet them. And then after we had fought, we had a really good relationship after the fight. You know, we got talking. It was good bouncing off each other, and then we went out and celebrated, resulting in that night in Arizona, which I ended up in quite worse for wear. It's the Scottish way, you know.
Yeah.
Couple of whiskies, and then pass out drunk somewhere.
Yeah, tell me about that night. So you and Jamahal, because I know Jamahal quite well. I interviewed him even before he was in the UFC. He's a guy who likes to have a good time. So tell me about after that fight, what you guys got up to that night that you can remember, anyways.
Yeah, so we ended up. The world was still in lockdown at this moment. You know, we were still in that sort of limbo of some states were open, some states weren't. Lockdown was still a thing. So after our fight, we came back and we started talking to Jamal Hill's coaches, his corner team, absolute gentlemen. We shared a whiskey with him. Jamal come back, and then we had a whiskey with him. I had received my black belt that night. And then Audie for Paradigm came up to us and said, listen, we're going to a nightclub if you'd be interested. It's an after party. I think it was for Izzy. Izzy was fighting. Yep, so it was like, there was myself, Izzy. It's like a ragtag of hoodlums. You know, there was Francis Ngannou. There also was Jimmy Manawa, and we ended up in this nightclub. Place was bouncing. Me and Jamahal Hill are having a dance off in the dance floor, which I clearly lost. And then we go outside into the main street, and there's just boxes of proper 12 whiskey. So myself, Jamahal Hill, and Jimmy Manawa were just sitting in this vehicle, just drinking this bottle of whiskey. It's the worst I've ever been. I end up in this penthouse, and then the next lot's kind of blurry. I don't really know how I get into here. I know how I get into the limo, and I know how I get out of the limo. Just all the in-betweens didn't really match up. It was like missing slides. And the next thing, I wake up the next morning with no clothes on, and my clothes are in the corner covered in sick. And my coach looks at me and says, "I had to strip you. I had to take your sick-ridden clothes off you. You owe me." And it was like one of the ones. I'm sorry. I felt like a wee boy, you know, when you've done something and you're like up at the headmasters. You're like, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean that." But crazy night. You share an experience like that with somebody like Jamahal Hill. You know, I wish him nothing but the best. And even when he gets that victory, when I believe he will, in Brazil, there's no hostility between us two fighting again. Like, I don't know what the UFC's got planned. Maybe Jamahal Hill offers me an opportunity to fight for that title, with having that only loss in his record. You never know, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of people wanting that title shot. But I just believe that I've done my time in this division. You know, my last fight didn't go my way, but I still believe I've racked up enough wins. I've racked up wins against, as you said, Jamahal Hill, Ankalaev, Krylov. I fought the who's who in that top 10, and I just need these big fights to get me closer to that. In that same breath, I believe Johnny Walker, who's a big name in the light heavyweight division, you know, he's this character who does some crazy stuff. He does his worm, dislocates his shoulder, does spinning back stuff. Wild athlete, but I believe in my skills, and I believe I'll be able to stop him.
We talked about the implications of a win here against Walker, and the fact that you have 2 wins over guys that are in that top 5. You've got, like I said, Jamahal fighting for the title, and if he wins, obviously it looks good for you. Even Magomed Ankalaev, who I think some people feel like could potentially get the winner, or at least be in that mix. So do you feel like a win here, no matter what happens, you're probably in the best spot of most people in the weight class?
I believe so. You know, coming off my loss for Volk, I don't think it's a bad loss. I went 3 rounds with a guy who knocks people out, and he wasn't able to knock me out. I believe had that fight went the other way, it's probably my name in that mix after beating Krylov. And if I'd beat Ozdemir, I'd have been in the mix. So that one fight has changed my path slightly. But I do believe it's set me on a better path. And I believe that if I win over Johnny Walker, puts my name back in that mix. I'm one of the top guys in this division for a reason. I'm there because I finish fights, and I'm there because I put on performances. right, the last fight wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. I should have listened to my corner when they said, Paul, your stand-up's looking good. Focus and push on with that stand-up. I should have done that, but it's confidence, and there's nothing more than 2023 is bringing me than confidence. That's what I'm taking into this year.
I mentioned the Magomed Ankalaev win. That fight was a few years ago. But what do you remember about that fight? And did you know it would be so monumental for you going forward, considering that he hasn't lost since then?
Yeah, I remember that fight. Like it's one of the you come to a fork in the road. This was one of these fork in the roads for me. I had went to the UFC very, very early, far too early than I should have. Had my first fight, had won via submission second round, had been beat in Vegas in 209 and then got beat in Glasgow on my hometown with a knockout. I then had an opportunity to fight on the London card, and the UFC was like, we'd love to fight this Russian guy. And it was very hard to find information on him because he's Russian, the shows, the promotions he was on, managed to find a few bits and bobs. And he was very well rounded then. He had the skills and his stand up and his striking. I remember standing backstage just as they're doing like the little VT that tells you all about this. Paul Craig, he's 6'3" tall, he stands, he does this. So it was giving you all my rap sheet. And then it gave you his, and it was like, he's a master of sambo. And then they were like touting him to be like the light heavyweight Khabib. And I remember looking at my coach thinking, what have we got ourselves in here? And he just says, listen, go out there and just do what you can do. And there was this clash, and I ended up breaking my ribs. I ended up putting a hole in my chin. I remember doing a spinning back fist, falling, like I caught him with a back fist, missed the cage, fell on my backside, and him just smothered me. There was all these kind of times where he smothered me. There was another point where he picked me up very effortlessly, picked me up, slammed me. But the thing I think that's going to live on for the rest of my life is going to be that last second submission where he's just cruising. He's up 3 rounds. If that last round had went to the judges, he's up there 3 rounds. He's done huge damage to me. I managed to take him down, managed to show some good elements in my game. But it's that last second that results in him tapping. And people are like, why did he tap? Like, I would have just let myself pass out. And the reason he tapped is because I put so much energy and so much power into my legs to finish that submission that there was no chance that I was given that opportunity away by seconds. And I willed everything in my body to submit him. And as soon as your body's in danger, the body has to like protect itself, and that was in the version of the tap. I remember Mark Goddard slapped me in the forehead to release my triangle, and I could hear like John Gooden and Dan Hardy just losing their shit behind me. And as I stand up, my teammates jump the cage, he's on my back. It's just this overwhelming feeling because that crossroads led me to get a new contract. And the UFC had sent that contract over before even Monday afternoon had closed. I received that contract. If I had lost that fight, I wouldn't have been a UFC fighter. I'd have been coming home from London to Glasgow, back to Paul Craig, the teacher, back to Paul Craig, the guy who's no longer an MMA fighter. Because at that point, if I'd not received a new contract with the UFC, I'd achieved my goal to get into the UFC and being a UFC fighter. I would have walked away from the sport there and then. What happened was this crossroad took me to the new contract, took me to Australia, took me to fighting in Brazil, took me to all these places in the world to get victories over top level opponents, resulting in me sitting here right this minute telling you this story. Because as I said, if that fight had went the way and I had lost it, went to the judges, lost all 3 rounds, then I'd have walked away from the sport. It's such a hard sport emotionally, with regards to the highs are high and the lows are low. And it doesn't matter what people tell you, like, oh, it's all right, you've just lost that fight, just pick yourself back up. It's not as simple as that. It's you put so much emotion into that whole camp. There's so many things that happen in these camps that you can't experience proper things with families, like Christmas dinner, like eating healthy during Christmas dinner. Not that I wouldn't eat healthy anyway, but not having the same things my family's having a pre-made meal that I've made 2 days before and putting in the microwave, but still sitting there. My family's having champagne and wine. I'm sitting there on water. And it's the same for New Year, bringing in the bells, a massive thing in Scotland. to bring in the new year with friends and family, and I'm in their house, and everybody around about me is absolutely mashed on alcohol, and I'm sitting there as a designated driver, and it hits like 3 in the morning, and I'm having to drive everybody home. So much sacrifices leads into a camp that the emotion is so high and so low. I'm looking forward to going to Brazil and releasing this emotion.
So, last thing, we mentioned Magomed Ankalaev in that fight with Jan Blachowicz. Watching that at home, did you think Magomed won, or what was your thoughts on the judge's decision on that one?
I felt Jan Blachowicz kicks did enough to score high in the first couple of rounds. But I believe if you're able to control somebody the way that Ankalaev controls Jan Blachowicz, who looked like he had no ground game whatsoever underneath Ankalaev, then that's a victory. That's like, for me, some of the judges could easily have scored them 10-8s. If your opponent can't do anything and he's unable to get to a dominant position, unable to get back to his feet, unable to return any punches, then he's getting outworked, outskilled, outclassed. And that would be the same standing up. If you look at it in the sense of you've got a fighter who's unable to defend himself, standing up, unable to answer shots or fling them back, what happens is either the referee steps in or you get 10-8'd. So why would it not be the same in the ground? So the way I look at it is the last 2 rounds could easily be 2 10-8s on the scorecard. So I leaned towards Ankalaev because I felt that it's 5 rounds. It's 5 rounds, and Jan Blachowicz couldn't kill him in the first 3 rounds. And I believe that top pressure that he was doing was fight ending right at the pro. He never ended the fight with it. But in my opinion, if you just take that to stand up, then it could easily be construed as 10-8s, and that's why I gave him the victory on that.
And one more thing. Do you golf at all? I was curious about that. Being from Scotland, I would assume it's just in your blood.
Yeah, I had played golf years ago. Nothing like serious. I just went out, hit a few balls off the driving range. But recently, one of the things that after a loss, as I say, this whole emotion of you go through this whole camp, you lose, you get into some bad habits. And for me, it was just lying in bed, like not being able to get out of bed because there was nothing to get out of bed for. I've not got training because I'm taking some time off because I've been medically suspended. All my family's back at work and school. All my friends are back doing their normal job, and I'm just sitting in the house myself. And I was just lying in bed, just literally rotting days away because I had nothing to do. And I had made a deal with myself. I was like, need to get out of this bad routine. And then one of the ways of doing it was picking up golf. And over the last 6 months, I've just been playing golf and getting better at it.
Nice.
Turns out, like I can smash a ball. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if it's a 3-iron or if it's a 3-wood. I can hit it the same distance. It's everything goes 150 to 200 yards. So I've been enjoying working, improving my skill. It's one of the things about being an athlete. You're always looking to improve skill. Even if it's not an MMA, it's about in golf. So I'm improving this swing, sticking my butt out, rolling my shoulders back and getting this nice swing. So I've shot a couple of good rounds where I've been positive and you get that sort of endorphin release where you're still trying to chase that. And then I've upgraded new clubs and I'm excited to go out and hit with these new drivers. Scotland at the moment, it's a bit wet, cold, miserable. So the courses have been, some days are open, some days are closed due to the ground's really, really cold at the moment. So I'm looking forward to going out, going out and trying out all these new clubs and trying out this new skill.
Yeah,
What about yourself? Do you do a bit of golf?
I love golf. I'm not very good, but I'm like you. Like I live in Vancouver, Canada. We have similar weather to the UK in that it rains a lot, right? So I actually played on New Year's Eve. It was pouring rain, but I love it. Like if there's no snow or there's no serious weather, I'll be out on the golf course. I absolutely love it, and I just picked it up during the pandemic when that was the one thing you could do was because it wasn't you didn't have to worry about social distancing, right? So
it's good, isn't it? It's see for for fighters and athletes. It's that walk, and it's just about pumping the blood around the body, and it doesn't have to be a high pace. It's just a nice leisurely walk. Hit a few balls. Sometimes you hit good ones. Sometimes you hit absolute winners, and sometimes you hit absolute terrible shots.
Yeah.
But I think it's about the good ones that you're trying to chase, isn't it? It's like
exactly. You're exactly right. That's what keeps you going. It's you have the bad days, but you get like one good tee shot. That's what keeps you coming back, man.
I know, and it's like every time, like so. The first hole at our club, I'm never hitting a driver off that. because my driver's just a little bit unpredictable sometimes.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe there's a slice one day. I always go for that free wood, just a nice straight shot right down the middle of the fairway, because you don't know who's in that clubhouse watching. Like,
right,
exactly. Did you see Paul Craig absolutely shank it into the road? So it's excuse me. That's what it's enjoyment of that, sort of chasing these shots. I go with my friend, and the two is just it's good time to just talk and like
get out of the house, and do something.
It's one of these things. That's what, as I say, it's like probably after a fight, it's probably like very low levels of depression I've got, because I'm stuck in the house myself, because I'm not doing anything, because I'm basically wasting away days wise. Mm-hmm. So it's good to get out there. It's good to talk to another adult. It's good to talk about a mate who enjoys golf, and it's good just to go out there and get some of that vitamin D. So it's a great sport just to kind of pass the time. But I think it's one of these ones where it can consume you, can it? It's like, right, I need to go and spend 3 hours in the golf. I need to go and do this again.
You're always out there thinking, I should have gone to the driving range more or something. You're always having that thought when you get a bad shot. And just quickly, I'll mention it because you're in the same division. Dustin Jacoby, who fights in your division at 205 pounds, he's supposed to be one of the best golfers. I've heard this from multiple people. He's done tournaments. So if there's ever a chance you want to test your golf skills, I think you and Dustin would have a good time, because apparently he's very good from what I hear.
Well, that's it. Like, I'm always looking to come somewhere in golf, so maybe I'll be coming your way. We'll get a couple of beers.
There you go. You're speaking my language. Got to come out to Canada, Paul. Really appreciate it. But in the meantime, man, we went way over time. Thank you so much for doing this. It's great talking to you, Paul. Just remind people where they can get a hold of you on social media, and if you got any sponsors or shout outs, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I think all my social medias are just at Paul Craig. That was one of the great things about Paradigm. They'd taken all my stupid names. It was like P. Craig MMA, Big Paul Craig, and just made them all Paul Craig. So all your platforms, apart from TikTok, 'cause I'm not down with the kids yet. I know this is a massive revolution in TikTok, but I'm just not down with the kids, and I can't dance. As I said earlier, with Jamahal beating me. With regards to sponsors, I don't really have any. Just doing my own thing, man. But hit me up if anybody's looking to chat with me on my socials. But man, I appreciate the time.